Deep breath. You know that feeling when you walk into a place and it just stops you? Not because it's trying too hard. Not because someone threw money at every corner. But because somehow impossibly it feels like coming home to a memory you never actually lived. That's what happens when heritage meets the future. When 150-year-old barn beams that once sheltered livestock and stored hay find themselves framing floor-to-ceiling windows that flood a modern kitchen with golden hour light. When the ghosts of rural America shake hands with minimalist design. When your grandfather's world collides with your Pinterest board. And somehow, miraculously, they fall in love. This is the Heritage Revival Barndominium. And it's not just architecture. It's a love letter to what we've lost, written in steel and reclaimed wood. Let me take you somewhere. Close your eyes, well, not literally. You're watching this, but imagine with me. Picture the American countryside at dusk. There's a structure on the horizon, and at first glance, you think it's just another barn. The silhouette is unmistakable. That iconic gable roof, the vertical lines, the honest simplicity that says I've been here since before your great-grandmother was born. But then, something's different. The light inside isn't the warm flicker of old Edison bulbs hanging from chains. It's architectural, intentional, and through those barn doors. They're 12 feet tall, and they're open, revealing not hay bales and tractors, but a living space that would make a Manhattan loft jealous. This is where the story begins. Not with new construction pretending to be old, not with old structures stubbornly refusing to evolve, but with something far more interesting, far more emotionally complex. This is about resurrection, about honor, about taking the bones of our agricultural past and breathing into them a future that doesn't forget where it came from. Because here's what nobody tells you about Heritage Revival Barndominiums. They're emotional time machines wrapped in metal siding. The movement started quietly, the way most revolutions do. Farmers and ranchers looking at century-old barns on their property. Structures their great-grandfathers built with their own hands, watching them slowly succumb to gravity and weather. These weren't just buildings. They were family members, silent witnesses to births, deaths, marriages, droughts, and harvest. And the thought of bulldozing them? That felt like erasing handwritten letters from people you loved. So instead of destruction, someone asked a different question. What if we could keep the soul but change the purpose? And that question changed everything. The Heritage Revival Barndominium isn't about slapping some shiplap on your walls and calling it rustic. Oh no, this is archaeological work. This is detective work. This is standing in a structure that's been slowly dying for 50 years and seeing not what it is, but what it was, and what it could become. It's about running your hand along a hand-hewn beam and feeling the axe marks from 1890. It's about finding the original hardware, those massive forged iron hinges that took a blacksmith 3 days to make and centering your entire design around preserving them. See, here's where it gets fascinating. The Heritage Revival movement operates on a principle that seems contradictory at first. Radical preservation through radical transformation. You're not creating a museum. You're not trying to live like your ancestors did, hauling water from a well and lighting candles at dusk. No, you're taking their craftsmanship, their materials, their architectural DNA, and you're giving it new life with 21st century functionality. Those original barn walls, they become the feature walls in your great room. Weathered gray wood with knots and nail holes telling stories your drywall never could. That old hayloft. Now, it's a reading nook suspended 20 feet in the air with glass railings. Because yes, you can honor history and also enjoy the view. Those massive sliding barn doors that used to let tractors in, they're still there. But now they're opening to a chef's kitchen with Italian marble countertops and appliances. That cost more than the original barn. And here's the emotional gut punch that nobody prepares you for. The juxtaposition doesn't feel wrong. It feels right. Profoundly, inexplicably right. Maybe it's because Americans, whether we admit it or not, are haunted by our relationship with our own history. We're so obsessed with the new, the upgraded, the next big thing, that we've developed this collective amnesia about our roots. We've paved over our past so efficiently that when we finally stop and turn around, we realize we can barely see where we came from anymore. And that creates this ache. This longing for authenticity in a world of Amazon Prime and AI and instant everything. The Heritage Revival Barndominium satisfies that ache. It says, you can have both. You can have heated floors and original post-stand beam construction. You can have smart home technology and walls that remember the Depression. You can FaceTime your family on devices that would seem like magic to your ancestors, while sitting under the same roof timbers they installed by hand, without electricity, without power tools, without Google to tell them how. But let's talk about what this actually looks like, because the design philosophy here is so specific, so intentional, that every choice carries weight. First, the approach. You don't touch the skeleton. Those original support beams, the posts, the trusses, they're sacred. They stay exposed, celebrated. In a world where modern construction hides everything behind drywall, the Heritage Revival Barndominium makes its structure the star of the show. That massive timber frame becomes your architecture, your art, your conversation starter. People walk in and they stop talking. They look up. They touch the wood like it's going to disappear if they don't make physical contact. Then, the envelope. This is where old meets new in the most dramatic way. You're taking those original barn walls, maybe they're board and batten, maybe they're vertical plank, maybe they're stone, and you're treating them with the reverence they deserve. But you're also insulating, sealing, adding modern moisture barriers and energy-efficient systems because, let's be honest, your great-grandparents would have loved not freezing their faces off every winter. They didn't live in drafty barns because they enjoyed suffering. They did it because they had no choice. You're honoring their spirit, not their chilblains. The windows are where you announce your intentions to the world. Original barns had small windows, practical windows, because glass was expensive and heat was precious. But now you're cutting in massive openings. Industrial steel frame windows that cost a fortune but look like they've always been there. Floor-to-ceiling glass that floods the space with light while still maintaining those vertical lines. That agricultural silhouette that says barn even as the interior whispers luxury inside. The palette is a love song to contrast. You're keeping those raw textures, the weathered wood, the exposed brick, the original stone foundations, but you're pairing them with materials that would make your ancestors' eyes pop out. Polished concrete floors with radiant heating, sleek matte black fixtures, marble and quartz and brushed brass. The old becomes the texture, the patina, the warmth. The new becomes the clean lines, the function, the comfort, and the spaces themselves. They honor the original volumes. Barns were built with soaring ceilings because they needed vertical storage. You keep that volume, but now it's about the feeling. About standing in your living room with 30-foot ceilings and feeling simultaneously small and infinite. About creating these cathedral-like spaces where Sunday morning coffee feels like a spiritual experience. The furniture tells its own story. You're mixing, always mixing. That reclaimed farm table made from the original barn floor, scarred and stained from decades of use. It's surrounded by modern metal chairs. That vintage industrial cart that once hauled feed. It's now your coffee table, topped with design books and a single good succulent. Your sofa is contemporary, clean line, probably hideously expensive. And it's facing a wall of original barn wood that's been there since before indoor plumbing. Here's what makes this so emotionally powerful. Every single element has a story. Not a made-up story, not a manufactured narrative, but a real story. That beam overhead, it came from a tree that was growing when the Civil War ended. Those stone foundation blocks, someone's great-great-grandfather lifted those into place in 1885. Probably in summer heat, definitely without air conditioning. Certainly without the convenience of a cold beer from a refrigerator. Because refrigerators didn't exist yet. And the lifestyle that emerges from these spaces, it's unlike anything else. Because when you live in a Heritage Revival Barndominium, you become a custodian. You're not just a homeowner. You're a keeper of memory. You find yourself researching the property, digging through county records, trying to find old photographs of what the barn looked like in 1920. You become obsessed with authenticity in a way you never expected. That light fixture you're considering? Sure, it's beautiful, but does it honor the space? Does it feel true to the spirit of the structure? This is architecture that demands mindfulness. You can't just fill it with whatever trending garbage you saw on Instagram. Every addition has to earn its place, has to prove it deserves to exist in a space this historically significant. The outdoor integration is another layer of genius. Original barns weren't isolated structures. They were part of a working landscape.